This week on the Orange Box Podcast, we talk about the Game Pass price increases, Red Dead Redemption 2 upgrade rumors, an AI generated game coming by the end of next year, and more. All of this tonight, but first, on to the new Beautiful Bean intro. Welcome to the place where PC and console gaming talk combine. This is the Orange Box Podcast, episode 105. I am your host, the man who will be replaced by an AI generated version of himself by this time next year, Nathan, also known as the Frozen Gamer 87. And joining me, as always, the man who smugly believes the Microsoft ABK deal is the reason every major video game company has raised their prices, Justin, better known as I am Zaracon. How you doing today? How's your week been?
It's been not too bad. It was a bit of I guess just getting over a proverbial hill, so to say. Last week, I was at a funeral for a family member, and it's something that we were expecting just because she had been ill, but it it is her passing still came, and I mean, the great news is that she had a relationship with Jesus, so we are definitely comforted in that fact. But it just was a moment of grieving for the family. Um, Over the weekend, though, it was pretty calm. Unfortunately, I didn't do nearly all the stuff I wanted to do. There were like things I wanted to get done, but unfortunately, I just didn't get around to doing them. So I'm sort of rescheduling that. So hopefully, Lord willing, I'll be working on that this time around this weekend. But yeah, it's been pretty much uneventful this past week, I'd say.
All right. Well, something that um, I heard someone say a while back, which really helped me a lot when it came to processing the death of a loved one, even a believing loved one, especially a believing loved one, is that because God is sovereign, that person, their work was done. I mean, it was everything that they did everything God wanted them to do, had them on this earth to do, and it's at the end, well done, my good and faithful servant. And I mean, yeah, I'm sure some people will get more of that than others, obviously, because I would say some of us are definitely not as faithful, or maybe not. Maybe that's not the right way of putting it. There's some that are more active and that have had like much greater impact than others. But regardless, for me, that's helped me to be comforted, as well as just that reminder that that's that they did everything God had them set on the earth to do, and that is ultimately why they died when they did. Um, as far as my week goes, so Saturday I went ahead and got the finished getting the church computer put together, because all I had left to do was just add in the GPU. At least that's what it seemed like. That's all it was going to be. It ended up being a little more complicated, but not like drastically so. So got the GPU put in. Everything was, well, it seemed like it was going to work. But then I found out that the power supply that I had, um, that we had gotten for the church computer, which is just a 500 watt power supply, but it's a fairly new one. The plugins for the GPU itself were designed for newer GPUs in mind rather than a GTX 980, and so because of that, so the older cables, it would have 4 pins. It would have 3 pins, and then it split off an extra 2 pins, and then you could that could be, moved, because it would typically take up a total of 6 pins on the older cards. And so then you do the 3 and 3. But the newer cables just have it as 4. And so you can't do that. Thankfully, I happen to have brought my old 750 watt GPU, or not GPU, power supply from my original build. So I ended up just having to pull out the 500 watt power supply, plug in my own, my old one that wasn't being used otherwise, and then plugged everything in, and it basically worked. I did have to get the software updated, get drivers updated in order to make sure that it would actually display properly, because it wasn't displaying on the TVs and the monitor at the same time. And once I got it updated and then just swapped out the order of when they were plugged in, then everything was working fine and had no problems on Sunday. So that was good from that standpoint. But it's kind of funny because now basically the build at the church's computer, with the exception of the case and the hard drive, it's my 2016 build put in the church computer. And then the living room build is my 2018/2019 build, basically. So I thought that was funny. But plus side of that is that we can return that 500 watt power supply, so then they can get money back for that, and that worked out. But then with my own build, so I'd been noticing that it was very loud in terms of that, like the GPU fans were just running like really hard, really fast from the moment I booted up any relatively demanding game. And it seemed like it was getting pretty warm inside the case. Like I wasn't having any problems with the computer shutting down or anything like that, but it was just really loud. And so part of the issue was that when I had put in the GPU, because of how long it is, the fan for the case didn't fit properly to where I could have it directly in front of the GPU, so it had to be slightly above, which meant that it's not giving as good a cooling as it should. And so I went ahead and ordered what I thought was multiple fans. Turns out it was just one. That wasn't really a big deal for the top of the case. So I put that in, and it's just blowing out hot air, which is fine. It's being used as an exhaust fan. But because of the fact that I didn't have direct cooling on the GPU, I was wondering if maybe I should try switching it to be to blow air in to the case to give it cool, to make it cooler. And so I tried swapping that earlier today, and when I flipped it over and installed it, then it was making like a loud sound. And it wasn't anything broken. It's just that it's not designed to be an intake fan. It's designed to be an exhaust fan. And so I ended up having to flip that back over. But because of that, I just wasn't really sure about, okay, how am I going to keep this thing cool enough? Because it's fine when I'm playing for, short sessions here and there, 4 to 5 hours, whatever, would be really more of a longer session. But when I'm doing my 24-hour stream coming up, that doesn't seem like a good idea. It just seems like it's going to overheat. And so with not really being able to figure that out initially, as I told you earlier today, I was thinking, okay, I'm probably just going to have to order a new case, get something that has better cooling and everything, because this is just not going to cut it. And so I find a case that has fans built in already, should be good to go, give plenty of cooling and everything. It gave me all the stuff I need. And then after I had ordered it, it occurred to me, you know what? So the way the front panel is set up, it has like a mesh thing on the front, and then it has like basically like a rack behind it where the fan was mounted, and the fan was mounted on the inside of that rack, which is why it couldn't fit down in front of the GPU. But it occurred to me, there's another side to that rack, and there might be enough room there to where I could fit one of those fans. Took off the mesh front. Sure enough, there's enough room that I could actually put the fans in that spot and that side instead. So I moved the fan to in front of the GPU, and I went ahead and ordered a couple more fans so that I could have 3 of them because it'll fit 3, and then canceled the order for the case. And in the process of doing all of that, I realized that the fan I had on my CPU, well, my CPU is like a what's the word I'm looking for? It's like a kind of like a radiator thing. Like it's got the metal base on the CPU, and then it has like 2 things that fork up, 2 like radiator like things. I don't know what you call them. And then it has 2 fans attached to that, and the way it's set up is it's supposed to be you put 1 fan in the middle and then 1 fan on the end. Well, I didn't realize I've had this fan since early this year when I first did the upgrade. It did not occur to me that I had the back fan pointing the wrong direction. So instead of blowing out the heat, it was sucking in any heat or cool air that was coming through the case, and so it wasn't doing what it was supposed to do. So when I realized that I had to make those other changes, I went ahead and flipped that around, and initially it wasn't working. I'm not sure exactly what I did wrong, but I figured it out. I got it sorted. Ultimately, all of it was sorted out properly, so now there's the proper cooling with that. I did realize another mistake I had made, which in my defense was only because of how my previous case was designed. So power supply, it has a fan on top or on bottom, depending on how you orient it. My old case was a solid metal bottom, so I always had the fan pointing up, so it gets some air in there, because otherwise there's no airflow. But this case actually has ventilation on the bottom, so I should have put it in upside down, so that it could pull cool air in from underneath. And I didn't do that. I haven't fixed that yet because it was going to be more of a hassle than it was worth today. But that is something I'm going to end up doing. I'll probably end up doing that whenever I get the other 2 fans, which it should be arriving tomorrow. So if I have time, I'll do it tomorrow. If not, it'll probably be over the weekend. It kind of just depends, because tomorrow we have, for one, I'm going to the office, and then 2, we have discipleship in the evening. So we'll just kind of see what kind of time I have. The power supply thing, I think, is a much lower priority one, because it's been like that for years. It's not going to hurt. It's not going to desperately hurt it. But I think for the ideal configuration, it would be better to have it facing down so it can pull in cool air. So yeah, but I think that's pretty much the gist of that. I mean, my in-laws arrived on Wednesday of last week, and then they left on Monday. They had gone to, I think, my father-in-law's aunt's house or sister's, one of the 2. I mean, they had gone to one of his relatives before they came to our place. Then they stayed with us for several days, and then they were going to another relative's on their way home. So yeah. So it was a shorter visit for them, because they're usually here for a couple weeks. But worked out, and I feel like there's something else that's happened, but it's probably not anything all that important. Yeah. Yeah, I can't think of anything else.
All right. I'm glad that the plethora of different dilemmas that you've had were able to be resolved, and also the fact that you didn't have to spend money on a whole new case entirely, and you were just, all you really just had to get were the few fans, but that was really it. And also the fact that you were able to refund your power supply, so that's more money coming back to you. It's definitely one of those weird things where you it's just interesting how you can put some stuff together and then realize, oh wait, I've done something wrong here, because that's happened to me before, where I didn't realize that I plugged something wrong place, or I didn't plug something in all the way, and then when I went to like power it on, I'm realizing, okay, why is this not working? And then I realized, oh, I didn't plug it in all the way, and that would do it. Let me see. So I guess because things weren't as, or at least you didn't have to take as many things out and back, put them back in, you won't have any it won't have any more dreams of computer parts dancing around.
Hopefully not. I mean, assuming it shouldn't take much of any effort, because basically I will probably have to pull the GPU out just because it's taking up enough room to where it's going to be harder to get in and screw those fans in. But otherwise, it should be all pretty simple.
Oh, and I guess just out of curiosity, since you've put it in, is the GPU you have now, is that using like the newer power as far as like the pins, or is that using still like the nice older ones?
It's just the older ones. I think that they probably I would imagine probably they didn't start doing that until the 40 series cards around there. And since this is the 7900 XTX and that's like 3 years old, it's probably before they started doing the simpler pins.
Okay. Neat.
All right. Well, what have you been playing this week?
So after Expedition 33, I've just been trying to figure out what to do next. I just haven't had any game that I've just wanted to get back. I mean, I know there are games that I've wanted to get back into and play. Like, yeah, like now that I'm free, I can go back to Final Fantasy VII Remake and get back into working on that. I also know that I've started Death Stranding, and I want to get back into that and continue to actually have, the dedication to focus on this now. But I don't feel like those games, I'm ready for them yet, just because I still need time to digest what I just experienced with Expedition 33. So I've been just trying to play games that are where I don't have to focus too much on the story, or at least focus too much on mechanics of games play. So briefly knocking these two out. I tried Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance. I only played that briefly. Part of it was just because I feel like, I don't know, after playing Kingdom Hearts 2, using the command decks is just, unfortunately, has just been a bit of a tricky thing to get back into. So I dropped that shortly after. No pun intended. I've been playing Halls of Torment just to work on more of the achievements. I'm down to, I think, 27 left. So I'm hoping to have all of that completed within the next few weeks or so. But it'll just depend on how many runs I have to do here and there. But one thing I did was during the Steam Autumn sale, I went and bought Cuphead: The Delicious Last Course. And this is definitely quite a challenging DLC, to say the least. I mean, granted, Cuphead was already challenging as it was. And with The Delicious Last Course, you can play as Miss Chalice, who is a character from the base game, but she was merely just an NPC that you encountered, but you get to fully play as her in the DLC, and you can actually use her in the base game as well with levels that you've played through before. And unlike with Cuphead and Mugman, she actually has her own unique abilities where she has a double jump. She can actually parry as she dashes rather than just have a parry that's separate from your dash. And one other thing is she has an invincibility dodge roll, which is definitely interesting to use as well. And I feel like some of or at least I've only really played a couple bosses in the DLC, but I feel like her invincibility roll is kind of not necessarily a necessity, because you would still be playing those levels as Cuphead. You can still play those levels as Cuphead or Mugman, but I feel like it really helps to use that dodge roll, because there are certain attacks where you can't, just dodge through because you'll still get hit, but because you have the invincibility frames, it really helps to just dodge certain moves. And the double jump has come in handy. Now, the one thing I will say about her dash parry is that sometimes it can be a bit of a pain, because you're trying to parry something, but you still have a slight jump, and that can launch you into projectiles or into enemy attacks. So that's a bit of a thing I have to get used to. But she's not bad as a character to play as overall. Now, the, the the bosses are still can definitely just be demanding. I mean, I've only played through 2 of them. The one you see right now, I eventually beat this boss fight, but that was like way later off camera after I was done recording everything. But you know, there was also a secret, or there was a surprise phase at the end where even though you initially think it's over, then you realize it's not over. And so while it's possible to beat, I don't think that the final phase is necessarily hard. It's just that if you're it's very easy to be caught off guard. And if you only have 1 HP left,
Yeah.
you'll die and have to start all over again. So that's happened to me quite a few times. But yeah, so it's definitely interesting. I've played some of the other boss fights in the base game as her, just to get a feel on how she plays. And I think I might use her for the one boss that I've had difficulty with getting an A rank in, just because I think her having extra hit points and also having the double jump is going to be very useful in that fight there. But yeah, definitely enjoyed that. And then the other game that I've played has been Power World, and this is just something Power World's been something where it's just a game that I sink time in without doing much thinking, and that's sort of like what I had been doing so far, was just trying to get used to the controls because I haven't played this in a while, B, try to figure out what I necessarily need to do. And I didn't realize, or at least there had been some point where they added a few more updates where they eventually actually had a full checklist in the game of objectives to complete.
Nice.
And while I had completed those objectives because I just been playing the game entirely, and those had just, as soon as I started, new objective, it's complete. New objective, it's complete. And so eventually it kept going on until like the current one, where I realized that a boss that I thought I was supposed to come and fight later was actually the one that I was supposed to fight next. So
Okay.
I said, even though I really don't feel like I'm prepared to fight this boss, and even though I really feel like the past 7 times or whatever I faced this boss and failed before I just like gave up and went in a different direction, I said I'll go ahead, try it. I have a feeling I'm gonna die anyway, but hopefully it won't be too much of a pain to go and get my items back, because I will be very upset if I have to lose everything. But I went in, and surprisingly, I was able to beat him
Nice.
this time around, which was great. It was very close though, because at first I thought, I don't know if I'm dealing enough damage to the point where I'll beat him within the time limit. But then I also thought, all right, I'm doing pretty well. I think this is possible. But then he hit me with a stun attack, and oh no, it wasn't a stun attack. He ignited me, and that was the thing where my health dropped dangerously low, and I was not certain if I would be able to stay away from him long enough for my shield to regenerate, or if he would just be so aggroed that he would just consistently hound me. So, fortunately, I was able to defeat him, and I just said, you know what, that's good enough for me. I think that's enough progress for one day. But yeah, all in all, I'm enjoying this. I'm probably going to come back later on, because I know that sometime, I don't think there's a month or specific date, but I know next year is when version 1.0 is going to come out for the game, so everything should fully be established at that point. So I'm gonna go in and see as far as like what is the final version, and pick things back up from there. Although I might still do a little more exploration here and there, or whatnot, but this really has just been to fill in time while I figure out what game I really want to play next, as far as like the main game I want to play.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's everything that I've been doing.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see if Power World, how much Power World retains of its identity after all the BS Nintendo lawsuits finish up, because it's just like they're trying to destroy this game. I mean, it seems like they haven't really been able to succeed, and so they're just throwing whatever they can at the wall, trying to see if they can find some way uh, to get this game to go away. But it's just not happening. So, yeah, good stuff though. I'm glad you were able to get past that boss. All right, so I guess before I get, I'll try to just do things more or less in order because there's a lot of games I tested over the past week, but most of them I didn't play a lot. It was more just kind of benchmarking than anything else. But I'll kind of start off. I did play some more Sonic Racing Crossworlds. I just did some of the Mirror Cup. The footage here is not from Mirror Cup because I didn't get anything recorded. It's just footage I recorded last week. But yeah, Mirror Cup is good. The little bit that I played so far. So there's that. I also continued playing some Hellblade 2, and I did. Let's see here. I'm trying to remember exactly what I did. I can't remember what I did with the visual settings. I basically just like lowered one or two things and then was able to get it to stay mostly above 60 FPS. But yeah, I've put in a total of a little over 2 hours so far, and it's the gameplay is pretty much identical to how it was in the first game, where it's very walking simulator with light puzzle solving and a little bit of combat, and that's really about it. But man, this game is like visually impressive. I mean, it's also obviously extremely demanding. The fact that I can't even, get a locked 60 FPS at 1440p, but it's just so detailed and so realistic, and it's insane. But yeah, I kind of dabbled with that a bit over the weekend. I didn't play as much as I thought I might, but I think part of the problem was I wanted to play something that was a bit more interactive because this game is just so walking simulator heavy. And it's games like this that make me wonder how anyone could possibly consider Death Stranding to be a walking simulator, because Death Stranding has so much more depth to the gameplay, and this game does not have a lot of depth. It's really just its story, it's the visuals, it's the way that they tell the story is really interesting. But yeah, it's like in terms of the actual gameplay, it's very simple. And while it's not the most walking simulator of walking simulators, I think probably that one goes to, oh gosh, what's the name of the game? I have to look it up. It's one in my Steam library. It took me like an hour, maybe two, to get through. I'll just check and see here. It's under indies. Indies. It is. Gosh, what is the name of that game? It's in here somewhere in my list. Unless I accidentally didn't file it here. That's gonna bug me. Oh, Dear Esther. That's the one I'm thinking of. That one is literally 100% a walking simulator, and it's a very slow walking simulator because there's like no sprint or anything. But yes, this one's less of a walking simulator, but it's still basically a walking simulator. But either way, I will probably still play a little bit here and there. I'm kind of thinking that I'll, maybe play like a section at a time, unless I'm just like really into it, because of the fact that after a while I get kind of bored of just the very basic gameplay. I wish there was more to it than there is. But like I said, it is very visually impressive. Easily the most realistic looking game I've ever played. I would say it's probably like 2 to 3 times more impressive than the first Hellblade. in terms of its visuals. And the first Hellblade looked really good, but this one is a lot more visually impressive. But now I'm going to get into a bunch of games that I tested, and there was a lot. I think it was probably around a dozen games. I think most of them I probably played for a half hour or less. But one of those was Death Stranding. And so, and as far as frame rate goes, now this with all visual settings maxed out, native 1440p, I was getting anywhere from the high 80s to over 120 frames, sometimes in like 130s, 140s, but I would say pretty average between the high 80s and the like 100 to 120. So it was kind of all over the place, but that's just how this game goes because of the amount of detail you're dealing with the environments and the draw distance and all that. So, but yeah, I mean, of course, it's still a great game. I pretty much decided that I'm not going to really be playing this one again until after Death Stranding 2 gets announced, and then I will probably just focus on getting the rest of the achievements, since it's mostly grindy stuff anyway at this point, just doing lots of premium deliveries more than anything else. So that's the main thing for that. I also booted up Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and with native resolution, no upscaling, apart from whatever their engine has, like for automatic dynamic resolution that's just built in, which I think is dumb that they make that a built-in thing instead of it being something that's optional. But considering it was designed first for PS5, it makes sense that they would do it that way. But either way, still largely very visually, visual clarity is great most of the time. So frame rate typically getting between 100 120. 120 is the cap I have for it, because I think that's the maximum cap you can do on this game. Maybe I'm remembering wrong about that. I can't remember specifically. I get a lot of them mixed up in my brain, but yeah. So yeah, consistently staying at that with all the settings maxed out. And yeah, I was very rusty at the controls for sure, but I was at least able to get through a handful of different fights and stuff, so do just some exploration and all that. I do eventually want to get back to this one. I need to be in the right frame of mind, because there is definitely a degree of open world fatigue that comes with this one over the previous game, and I just have to be in the right mood and all that. I mean, I know that whenever I get back to it, I want to focus more so on getting further in the story and then do the open world stuff as I'm interested in doing it, but we'll kind of just see what happens with that. Then I also tested out Ghostwire Tokyo. The footage here, I have ray tracing turned off because even though it ran fine with ray tracing on, it's still, there's just a dramatic difference in frame rate between the two. I think it was like 80 to 100 with ray tracing fully turned on and all settings maxed out. Without ray tracing, I'm getting anywhere from on the low end, I got down to like 115, and the high end over 200 frames per second. So I mean the game's gorgeous even without ray tracing. It's possible in the future, like whenever I get back to it, I might take the time to mess around with and see about what kind of ray tracing would be worth keeping on. But at the same time, I'm also very stubborn about using ray tracing, and I kind of just want to not use it because I'm so against it. It's like, yes, it's visually impressive, but I can play the game still looking amazing without ever using ray tracing. So, yeah. But nevertheless, still a cool game. I do want to get back to it. I'll probably play it actually some during my 24-hour stream, as it is a spoopy kind of game that's like perfect for the Halloween season. So I very likely will end up playing some of that. Then I did a very, very tiny bit of testing with Hogwarts Legacy. And this one on all ultra settings, with ray tracing, let's see here. I can't remember what it was getting with ray tracing. It was probably like in the 80 to 90 range, but probably would drop some. And the thing is, I didn't play a lot. I was basically just inside of Hogwarts. In fact, that's all I was doing because I didn't really want to play all that much right now. But with ray tracing turned off, I was getting between 140 and over 170 frames per second with all the settings maxed out. And I mean, game looks amazing. And I mean, I remember before when I played it previously that it ran. I mean, not only did it run well, but it played really well. Like, I know it's a game that I will really enjoy when I actually get into it. I just not ready to get into it. So I just did some very brief testing and didn't do any combat or anything. I was literally just talking to a couple people, and inside of Hogwarts actually seems to be pretty demanding too, because there's just a lot of stuff all around and lots of shadows and lights and everything else. So yeah. So then I did some testing with Horizon Forbidden West, and this is the first time I believe I've tested since I upgraded my GPU. And so average that I was getting, and keep in mind this is not with like a benchmark, because I can't remember if this one actually has a benchmark utility. I know that Zero Dawn does, but I don't remember if Forbidden West does, and if it does, I didn't try running it that way. I just played a bit. But with that, I was getting on average somewhere between 88 and 100 frames per second, sometimes higher, sometimes lower. Some drops into the low 70s from what I was observing in the footage. But it's, I mean, with its 1440p, all visual settings maxed out, and it's a gorgeous game. This one does not have ray tracing as far as I know. So, and even if it did, obviously I would turn it off. But it is a very beautiful game. The only problem I was really having playing this one is that I'm used to games lately having the dodge mapped to, or well, even let me back up. Some games will have dodge mapped to circle. Sometimes they'll have it mapped to square. But usually if it's mapped to circle, then the crouch is mapped to a completely different button. In this game, the crouch is mapped to square, and the circle is for the dodge. And so I kept accidentally crouching when I didn't want to crouch. And because of that, I kept messing myself up when I'm trying to get around, because it's like, okay, I'm slowing myself down because I'm crouching unintentionally. But yeah, gorgeous game. Another one I really want to get back to, but I have to decide I'm ready to really play it before I do. So there's that. Now the next one was one of the more impressive ones, Liza P. So this one, the frame rate I was getting with everything maxed out on the low end, and granted, this is not getting into any like heavy enemy fights or anything. It was just, a handful of smaller fights because I didn't veer too far from where I was. The low end was 168 frames per second. The high end, it got up to 240. Now that wasn't common. And okay, and actually technically there were some times where it got into like the 270s. But this game is really well optimized, and I mean, like, it already ran really well on my 2080 Ti, but yeah, it runs beautifully. Like, it runs so well with all the visual settings maxed out. I can't remember if this game has ray tracing or not. Either way, obviously, I would probably turn it off. This may be one of the few games where I would consider turning it on if it was an option, if I wasn't so stubborn about not using ray tracing. But I don't believe this one has ray tracing. Either way, yeah, runs absurdly well. Yeah, it's just, wow, this game runs so well. And really, this is a game that fully took advantage of my GPU and still was not, I mean, certainly wasn't using my 24 gigs or anything, but it was definitely taking advantage of it. Then I also did some Metaphor ReFantasio. I really just played for maybe 10-15 minutes, but this one, so I had this one. I know the maximum I could cap it to was 120 FPS, and or well, maybe I'm wrong on that. Anyway, the point is that I capped it at 120 FPS, and um, I was getting typically between, I mean, on the low end around 100 FPS, and then it was hitting 120 pretty consistently. So, but yeah, and that's 1440p with all the visual settings maxed out, and it's, you know, gorgeous game, amazing music, all of that good stuff. Now, this next one was one that actually surprised me quite a lot. Monster Hunter Wilds. So, of course, this one did not run well on my previous GPU. Even with the CPU upgrade, it was most of the time not even consistently hitting 60 FPS. And that was with some settings lowered and stuff. It just was not... This game is not well optimized. However, I was actually getting performance that I considered to be good. Without any upscaling, native resolution, I was getting between 70 to 90 frames per second with ray tracing turned on. Granted, that was before I started going outside more, and then it was kind of all over the place a little bit. But with me being outside with ray tracing turned off, on the low end it started around like 76 frames per second. But then on the high end, it was getting into the 90s to hundreds. And either way, it was running a lot better than before. I have considered with this game potentially using some upscaling, mostly because the type of the type of anti-aliasing that they use, I believe, is TAA, and TAA sometimes just kind of is a little bit of a mess in terms of how it functions and makes things a little blurry. But either way, I was much more impressed with how the game runs on this graphics card. Like, it legitimately runs well enough to where I could keep it on native and just play it, and I would be perfectly fine, you know, with the way it runs. Yeah, and it looks like I can't tell if this is before or after I turned off ray tracing. I think it's after. No, this is before I turned off ray tracing. Anyway, so yeah, either way, overall pretty satisfied with that. I just basically played long enough to fight a couple of big monsters, and that was really the extent of it. But it's still not a game I'm wanting to dive into right now, and I was very rusty on the controls. There was a lot of things I kept doing wrong. I kept accidentally... Like I'm used to most games, you press Y to do like a weaker attack, and you press X to do a stronger attack, or I guess it's vice versa on the Xbox controller. But in this one, when you press X, it puts away your weapon or pulls it out or uses an item if you have your weapon put away. And so I just kept accidentally putting away my weapon when I didn't mean to, and stuff like that. But yeah. Either way, I'm pretty happy with the way it looks and runs. I did of course turn off ray tracing because, like, I'm not going to use ray tracing, and all of that good stuff. Anyway, all right, moving on. I also tested out Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered. This one still runs like garbage. I mean, now, to be clear, initially I was trying to run it with native resolution, and that's really where it was running worse, and it was frequently dropping into like the 50s for the frame rate, but it still is a drastic improvement over what it was on my 2080 Ti. I couldn't run it at native resolution there. I had to lower settings and use DLSS. This one, I think I ultimately ended up turning on FSR just because I wanted to be able to get a better frame rate. And once I did that, I was able to get a more consistent 60 FPS and above. And I mean, the game looks amazing, of course. Um, I was in the combat arena and I died many times to the boss I was facing before I finally managed to beat him. Mostly because I only have a very weak healing spell that only heals at like 10 HP at a time. And so I couldn't really heal myself easily, and I didn't have a shield. So I was just two-handing a weapon, and I was just getting hit a lot. But eventually, after multiple attempts, I was able to beat that person and move on to the next stage. But yeah, not much more to say about that. Then I did some Returnal, and this one is another crown jewel with how well it runs. Now, it doesn't run as well as Liza P, but it still runs really, really well. With ray tracing turned on, it was getting about 70 to 90 frames per second. I can't remember what the benchmark said, what the actual total was, what the actual average was. I know with the benchmark when I ran it without ray tracing, but everything else maxed out, native resolution and all that. It was getting about 134 frames per second for the average. But the frame rate, of course, depending on what you have going on screen, can go anywhere from like the 130 range all the way up to 200 or higher. And I mean, of course, the game looks incredible. It runs really, really well. It's a beautiful, well-optimized game. I know that it wasn't, from what I've heard, like when it first came to PC, but nowadays it runs great. So, still not great on Steam Deck as far as I know, but it does run great on PC otherwise. So, very impressed with this game. I didn't play a ton. I basically just I did like a couple of runs and died both times and then stopped playing. And it's one of those that I really want to play it, but at the same time, I also have to be in the right frame of mind where I'm ready to do these runs and everything and just keep working at it, like with Hades. And I haven't been in that frame of mind. So one of these days, God willing, one of these days. But then I also did some Red Dead Redemption. And apart from the beginning here where I forgot what button did what and started crouching unintentionally, I played a bit of this and set the frame rate cap on this. The maximum you can do is 144 frames per second, which is what I set it at. And I basically, once I hit that, it didn't drop below it. So 144 FPS, all the settings maxed out. I mean, granted, this was originally a PS3 game, PS3 and 360 game, and then they, obviously did a re-release for PS4 and Switch. But still, max settings, HDR, 144 frames, basically locked. So, yeah, I mean, from what it shows on the GPU graph, it also can, technically, it's rendering up to like in the 160s, but because it's capped at 144, that's the maximum that it's displaying on screen. So either way, looks great, runs great. Massive improvement over playing on PS3 or even the Switch. And yeah, good stuff. Then I did Star Wars Jedi Survivor. And this one, when I initially booted it up, it had everything maxed out, including all ray tracing stuff on, and it seemed to be running fine. But then once I got to like the edge of leaving this mine I was in, then the frame rate tanked for a couple of seconds, and then it caught back up. Like it just like froze for a second, and then dropped down to like the 50s and the 30s, and then bumped back up into the 70s and 80s. I didn't check out ray tracing when I went outside. I just decided to turn it off before that, and then I left it off. But all settings at Epic, max field of view, ray tracing turned off, native 1440p, and I was getting anywhere from 80 to 100 was pretty average when I was outdoors, and that's really where it's more demanding than anything else. So. Very pleased with the performance on that one. Yeah, it's another game I want to play, but I I have to decide which game to play, and I was struggling with that quite a bit. Um, let's see here. Um, okay, so I think that's it for games I really tested. But then there's a couple other games I ended up playing because I wanted to play them. One of which just being Persona 3 Reload on the Steam Deck is the only place I played that, and just slowly making progress. The footage is old, but considering it's all just dungeon crawling, there's not really anything new that needs to be added at this point. Just slowly making my way through. So, um, yeah, that's kind of my Steam Deck game. That's my go-to Steam Deck game at the moment because of the fact that I can just do a little bit here and there, and obviously it runs really well, looks great. So, um, but then I ended up, after waffling around trying to figure out what I actually wanted to play, I ended up playing quite a lot of Assassin's Creed Valhalla and getting some practical in-game experience. I was getting pretty consistently in the like anywhere from, I think on the low end around 120, 130 to like the 150s, 160s. Pretty average with everything maxed out. This one doesn't have ray tracing, I believe. And yeah, so very great performance. Something I do want to note, I need to correct something I said last week. Last week, clearly the information I initially got was wrong. I said that 200% of 1440p was 5K, and that was not correct. It's actually more like 3.5K. Because it's not as high as 4K, because 4K is like 8 million pixels, and 1440p is like 3.8 million pixels, something like that. And then if you double that, it ends up being like 7.4 whatever something million pixels. So it's not quite 4K, not quite native 4K, but still native 1440p, or native 3.5K, whatever. Still pretty good performance. Obviously, I stuck with 1440 because it still looks amazing. It runs extremely well. And I mean, obviously, a lot of this is just brute force because I have a really strong machine. But yeah, I'm not sure exactly how much time I put into it, but it was probably like 5 or 6 hours over the weekend. I might have played a little bit on Monday, maybe not. I can't. No, I didn't. I didn't play. I didn't play yesterday because yesterday I was just playing Persona. But yeah, so it. I mean, still having a good time with it. It's kind of been more or less my go-to since I decided to that was what I wanted to play. So that's kind of where my focus has been a bit more. But there was something that pulled my attention away, and I don't know that this is going to be something that I'm really playing, but I reinstalled it on my laptop just in case. Because I played a bit this evening as I was testing and messing around with settings a bit. And that's Expedition 33. Now, I will say right now that the footage that's playing here, for some reason, I don't know, it's just this one video with OBS that it's like drastically slowed down. The rest of them were playing completely normally. It's just this one, and I've tried removing it and re-adding it and stuff. But anyway, I'll add the real version, the normal speed version, in the final version of the video podcast. But yeah, so I ended up, I mean, initially with native settings and everything, I was getting around the 55 to 65 range, was pretty average. And that's of course with all visual settings on Epic. And then I ended up just deciding to go ahead and use some upscaling. This one doesn't actually have FSR, which I didn't realize because I had only played it with DLSS before, but it just has XESS and TSR. I can't remember which one I settled on using. I think it was TSR, but I ended up just doing it like upscaling to high to where it's like visually looks good, but it's using upscaling, and was able to get more in like that 80 to 100 ish range. I could potentially do some more fiddling with settings and everything to get it running even better, but for the time being, I think that I'm pretty happy with that. And obviously, whatever settings I have on the laptop from before will be the same as they were. So um, that I think that one I was doing DLSS performance. So, but yeah, I reinstalled it today on my laptop, so I'm probably gonna end up playing some of that during my lunch break tomorrow. Um, I've only played as far as just past the first boss you face. Um, well, I guess it's technically more of a mini boss, but when Gustav goes to that area and sees all the bodies piled up, and then fights the boss, and then Lune comes out and all that. So that's as I'm a little bit past that, and part of the reason I'm kind of interested in playing is, number one, because of the fact that, you know, with you talking about the game and me watching a bunch of videos on lore and that really funny video that I shared with you, things like that, I just kind of like, you know, I kind of feel like playing this one a little bit some more. But then also, I also really want to bully the chromatic enemies that gave me so much trouble before. Because they really did give me so much trouble previously. And if I can bully them and just beat the crap out of them, I will be very satisfied with that. So I'm planning to do it at minimum, you know, the first chromatic enemy, I'm nearly to him. I'm going to go and I'm going to beat the ever-loving snot out of that guy. And I now that I have the parry timing down better, I probably will, at least initially, try to see if I can parry his attacks properly. But if I can't, then I'll just beat him up, you know, normally, especially because I can use any party member that I've previously gotten, with the exception of Verso, obviously. But yeah, so I have everybody all in the 90s and stuff, and so far every enemy I've faced has been a complete cakewalk. I mean, they're not going down in one hit because their HP is higher than it was before, but they're still going down very easily, and in most cases in a single turn. So it's good stuff. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Yeah, that's it. That's everything. There's definitely more games I will probably test within the next week, but those are all the games I tested and played.
Nice. Quick question, since we were just discussing that. Do you get to keep painted power when you start new gameplay? Okay. That's
Though I
pretty
can't
fun, man.
remember if it's equipped on Gustav by default or not, because it's been a while since I did that part of the game. But I know that at least by the time I was actually down at the dock right before going out on the expedition, I had it equipped for sure.
Very nice. I'll definitely keep that in mind as I start New Game Plus.
Oh, and I have Gustav wielding Simon's sword. I mean, it's nowhere near as big as Simon's sword, but it's glowing and everything. You know, that really cool appearance. So
yeah, someone had done a mod where they had Gustav.
to fight Simon. Yeah,
Simon. And it's like lore accurate Gustav, and I'm just like, really? I don't know if that's really lore accurate, but okay.
Yeah.
Going back to some of the other stuff earlier stuff you were mentioning. I can't recall. Did you say if Hellblade 2 was native or if you were using upscaling for that one?
I'm pretty sure I'm doing that one native. I would have to double check my game, but I'm almost positive I am doing it native. I just lowered a couple settings to high instead of, or to medium. I think it was, they were on high and I had to lower them to medium in order to get that 60. But I may have ultimately ended up adding FSR to make it more consistent. I honestly don't remember.
Yeah. Yeah, main reason I was just asking was because I had noticed a very big trend where every game you've played with that has been in Unreal Engine 5 has needed upscaling
Yep.
in order to maintain a frame rate over 60 FPS, or as you said, you had to turn stuff down if you were actually running it natively, which I'm just like, yeah, Unreal Engine 5, just even if you're throwing 24 gigs of VRAM at it, it's just
Well, I don't even think it's
obliterating.
using the 24 gigs of VRAM. I think that none of these games are optimized to actually utilize that amount of VRAM that's available.
Ugh. Ugh. Oh, that's just sad. That's a real shame because when you look at other games like Lies of P, or even
Mhm.
games that might technically be more demanding like Returnal, and you're still getting that great performance.
Yeah.
It's just sad that these other games on Unreal Engine 5 can't have something at least decent. Just running it natively at least.
Right.
Um, uh, to get decent frame rate. But yeah, so Unreal Engine 5 takes another takes a I guess takes another W on its end, but on our end it's just another L for
Yeah.
us. Um question regarding the I think you said the premium deliveries for Death Stranding. Are
Mhm.
those like random ones, or are those part of say the main mission ones? Or I guess are they randomly generated, or are they ones that you actually unlock as you play the game? Just out
Uh,
of curiosity,
well,
because I want to know
they
what to
are
expect.
yes and no. So basically, I think for one, you have to be playing on one of the higher difficulties, which really the higher difficulties aren't that much more difficult. So it's worth doing for that. But basically, it's just you any delivery, normal delivery that pops up that you have available to do, you just go over and select premium, and it just basically makes it so you have like less time and you have more difficult requirements in order to be able to get the highest rank.
Okay. Okay. And okay, and so you have to be on like the highest difficulty already, or is this something that sort of like it's just a challenge
Yeah,
modifier
well,
when you
no,
see them?
I mean, you can change the difficulty at any time, and you have to change. I think it's the highest or the second highest difficulty. You can have either one, I believe, but I can't remember exactly what it is because it's been a little while since I changed the difficulty. I just know that it hasn't really made a drastic difference. It basically just makes it so that you have, I mean, the missions are, I mean, those deliveries are, the requirements are more stringent, but otherwise, it's really not any more difficult than the normal version of the game. Granted, I haven't done any boss fights in the higher difficulty, but yeah.
A few things just regarding, well, I guess just regarding the different aspects of your GPU. Regarding ray tracing,
Mm-hmm.
I know that it's not necessarily going to be a real comparison since the generations aren't they weren't from the same generation
Mm-hmm.
of launches. But I also know that Nvidia has had a big advantage over ray tracing
Right.
over AMD. Um, so how has ray tracing been on your uh, 7900 XTX compared with your 2080 Ti?
Because of how little I used it previously, it seems like it's relatively similar, but the 2080 Ti is also a much older card, so that's not necessarily saying much. Um, because the 2080 Ti is a 7-year-old card, and the 7900 XTX is a 3-year-old card. So I think it was pretty similar, but um, honestly, I don't know. Like I thought it was pretty visually impressive, but I never keep ray tracing on long enough to really be able to fully appreciate it, I guess. And when I have, it's just been on my 2080 Ti. I haven't really done it on the AMD card.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious about how it is, because I mean, I know AMD is trying to catch up with Nvidia, but at the same time, Nvidia is just so far ahead that there's
Yeah.
a whole lot of ground that AMD needs to do, both in, you know, ray tracing, but also, of course, just upscaling in general with FSR, just to catch. I mean, if they've improved with FSR 4.0, but it's just they've just got so much ground to cover, and I mean, I think only within this gen, or maybe it was the last gen with the 7,000 GPUs, they finally added in actual cores on the GPUs that have like the that are sort of like the equivalent to CUDA.
The tensor cores.
Yeah.
I think that was this gen for the 9000 series, I believe.
Okay. And then my last question, and this is because of the frame rate you were getting for Liza of P. What exactly is the maximum refresh rate of your monitor?
240 hertz.
Okay, 240 hertz.
Yeah.
And it still showed like it could get 270.
Well, I think it was showing that because it was uncapped. I uncapped the frame rate, and so that's why it was technically getting up that high. But of course, obviously, my monitor can't display that high. I think the maximum refresh rate you can currently get on a monitor is like 320, I believe. But I mean, 240 is already ridiculous, and most games don't reach that highs unless you're playing an older game. And even the older games, it just kind of depends on the game. But yeah.
Good stuff all around. And I can't wait to hear more of the tests that you have, and also of course can't wait to see how the temperatures change once you put your new fans in, and also if that possibly maybe gives you a little better performance as well with the cooler temps.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm not entirely sure because the number one thing is I just don't want the fans to run quite as loudly on the graphics card because it's just very loud and it's distracting. I mean, if it does still run loud, at least as long as I know that it's being cooled better, it won't bother me as much. It was just like it was running really loud, and then on top of that, I know that it was getting hot inside the case because I'd feel the glass and it was warm. It's just like, this doesn't make me feel comfortable with this, especially because like when I ran stuff on my 2080 Ti, I don't think I can remember much of any times that the fans would be that loud. So I don't know. And I mean, maybe if I get like MSI Afterburner, I mean, if I install that and try to see if I can mess with the fan curve for the GPU, I might be able to make it less loud, but I don't know. Either way, as long as it's staying cool enough that it can run things properly and not overheat, then I guess I really don't have too much to complain about. But yeah. All right, good stuff. Well, let's get into the news. So, before we get into the more negative stuff, I just want to bring up this thing about Red Dead Redemption 2. Basically, once again, Nate the Hate has confirmed that Red Dead Redemption 2 is, in fact, getting a current-gen update for PS5 and Series X and S. It's also coming to Switch 2. I think he doesn't have a release window. He wasn't sure what that would be yet. But either way, he said that it is, in fact, coming. I definitely have some thoughts, but why don't you start us off?
Obviously, I think this is great. I can't remember if currently with the consoles released with the PS5, Xbox Series, if the frame rate is still just basically capped at whatever it was in the PS4 or not.
Yeah,
but,
it's 30. It's still 30.
Oof, yeah, yeah. So definitely this would be great for the hardware to finally, for the games to finally take advantage of the hardware that they're
Right.
running on, instead of having to be treated like it's still a PS4 or
Right.
Xbox One. So that's definitely great on that end. And, I think if you can get the game running on last gen's hardware, I think it definitely would be fine to run on the Switch too.
Yeah.
Um, how well it'll run, we'll definitely have to wait and see. But the Switch 2 has the advantage of having NVIDIA tech, so it has DLSS, so that
Mhm.
could definitely
Yeah.
help it. And maybe it'll. I don't know. I'm gonna be optimistic and say maybe it'll run between 40 to 50 frames per second. I think it could do that. I'm trying to be optimistic
Well,
here.
it depends on what type of emphasis they go for. I do not think it will run that well. And it's not necessarily because it's not capable. I think that they could, if they were to do some type of performance mode, that could be doable, but they would have to do something like that, and I'm just not sure they would.
True. And then I guess also one thing is the downside, I guess, with the Switch 2 version would be if that game would end up being just a key card. If it gets like a physical, I have a feeling it might,
Probably.
which is just sad in that end. But I think this is definitely great news all around. I'm hoping that for PS5, Xbox Series owners of the game, that hopefully they can at least have some type of upgrade path where, I mean, granted, I think if you're playing the same game, you shouldn't necessarily need to have it. I think it, but
Yeah.
I would hope that they have some cheap, say, $10 you get to upgrade to the next gen version or whatnot, so that way they don't have to go out and spend another possibly $40-$50 on the game they already bought and spent $60 on before. So here's hoping for that. But I think that all around this is just a great thing. That people are able to take advantage of the hardware they have, but that's sadly the problem with playing games on consoles is the fact that you can't necessarily take advantage of newer hardware unless the devs allow you to.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, of course, I'm very glad that this is finally going to happen. I mean, obviously, we don't have any confirmation of when, but I don't have any reason to doubt Nate the Hate because he's always been correct. So, my main thing about that I'm curious about is what exactly it's going to look like in terms of frame rate and visuals, because I know that on PS5 or PS4 Pro you could get upscaled 4K 30. So theoretically they should be able to do at least upscaled 4K 60. And if it's not upscaled, I would think 4K 30 should be doable. It's possible. I mean, Rockstar did do a really good job with the PC version, getting it well optimized. It's possible they might be able to get native 4K 60. I don't know. I mean, they would definitely have to turn down some settings in order to make it like really do that. But at the same time, they really did a great job optimizing it on PC. So if they can if they optimize it well on PC, they could theoretically optimize it really well for consoles and make it run at native 4K 60. Just not going to be as high of settings as what you get on PC. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's hard for me to say for sure, like, exactly what it would be. Because I know, like, when I was running it on my 2080 Ti, when I was doing 1080p, I was doing 1080p around 90 frames per second was pretty average. And then on the Steam Deck, I lowered some settings, of course. I mean, had quite a mix of settings, but I had like high textures and couple other things, and then I was able to get a near locked 40 frames per second, which I was perfectly happy with because it's a lot better than 30. Not as good as 60, but it's better than 30. And I ended up playing a lot of the game on Steam Deck. So the Switch version, I honestly believe that while it would be possible for them to get it up to 40 FPS in performance mode, the only way that they'd really be able to do that is if they turn down some settings to make that happen. Because the fact that it could get there on the Steam Deck, there's not really any reason why it shouldn't be able to do that on the Switch 2. And yeah, I mean, it would be it's one of those that would be very interesting to see on the Switch 2. If they put the full game on the cartridge, I would probably buy it. Even though I've technically already bought the game twice. Well, not technically, I did already buy the game twice because I bought it originally when it went on sale through the Rockstar launcher. And then because of the fact that I couldn't get the Rockstar launcher version to run on the Steam Deck, I ended up buying it again on Steam. I mean, I did buy it when it was on sale in both cases. But yeah. I mean, my preference, of course, would be I would rather just there be a demo on the Switch 2, and then I could download the demo probably for comparisons, but also just for the sake of being able to see, okay, how does this look and run on the Switch 2? Because I would very much like to know that. But more as a curiosity point, because I don't think I really want to replay the game. Like, I thought Red Dead 2 was really good, but at the same time, I felt like I kind of liked the gameplay of Red Dead 1 more than I liked of 2. Just a personal preference kind of thing. The story was great, though. The story was great, and characters were great and everything. There's a lot of things I really, really liked about that game. I just think that Red Dead 1, in terms of the actual gameplay, I liked it more. But yeah. So either way, I think this is good news. I'm just looking forward to hearing when it actually happens, because I know that will sell really well on Switch 2, and we'll see whether I think they're probably going to do an upgrade charge for PS5 and Xbox, rather than just giving them the update for free. But I mean, at least if it's $10, that's not terrible, even though we've been able to do high frame rates on PC for since like 2018 or whenever it came. I guess it was 2019 that it came to PC. So since 2019 we've been able to do high frame rates. Better late than never, I guess.
Question, just because of as you discussed things, it made me think, do you think the Switch 2 could do 1080p 60? Possibly?
With DLSS, maybe. I doubt that they will do that. I think it would be really cool if they did. That would actually make me much more interested in buying it. Because, being able to play at 60 on a handheld would be really nice. But of course, once again, that's also if it was actually fully on the cartridge. Because otherwise, there's really no point. But that is an interesting thought. It's not impossible. I mean, I do think Rockstar is capable of making the game run really well. It's just they have to put in the work, and with what they did on the PC version, the fact that it runs as well as it does on Steam Deck, I don't see any reason why it shouldn't be able to run really well on Switch 2, especially because DLSS is there. And DLSS is just much better upscaling technology than FSR and XeSS. So we'll see. All right, any other thoughts on that topic?
No, sir.
All right, you want to do the honors with the Game Pass situation?
Oh boy. All right. So, Microsoft has yet again raised the prices of yet another part of the Xbox service. So, last week, Microsoft sent out a video discussing changes to the Xbox Game Pass services, and said they pretty much saying like, yeah, we've got new stuff here. We've renamed a lot of the different types of Xbox uh, Game Pass that you have, and yeah, they did all that stuff. But what they didn't say is the pricing of the different services. So, and additionally, this hasn't, I believe, been confirmed yet, but there is also what's being present or spread around as rumors, the fact that there's going to be a free version of Xbox Game Pass with ads. But as far as what is official confirmed is the fact that Xbox Essential, which is Xbox Core, is $9.99 a month now. Xbox Game Pass, or I'm sorry, this is PC Game Pass, is now $16.49 a month, whereas it was $11.99 a month before. Xbox Game Pass Premium is okay. It's the same price as that, but but here's the big one though. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, which was $19.99 a month before, is now going to be $30 a month. And again, they didn't mention this before in the video. Additionally, they also didn't mention this in the video, the fact that you can't use I can't remember what exactly it's called, but the points you normally get through playing the games and whatnot. Before, you could use that to spend on DLC and stuff like that. You cannot use that. You cannot use those points anymore. So you actually will have, or at least if you can use it, you're reduced as to how much you can spend to redeem for games and DLC and stuff like that. So in addition to having to pay more, you also lose the ability to use your points to buy stuff that you would like to. And this has rubbed people the wrong way, to the point that so many people were going to cancel their Game Pass subscriptions that they crashed the site. I don't remember how long the site was down for, but they completely crashed the site, and it was a while before people could go back to continue canceling their subscriptions to Game Pass. And yeah, so I have that's really the general big nitty gritty aspects of it. I have quite a few different things to say about this, but what are your thoughts on this whole fiasco?
All right. Well, first of all, I do want to mention some things that you didn't mention. One of those is that the all the tiers are going to have access to Xbox Cloud Gaming, which sounds good, except that depending on what tier you have determines how long of a wait time you have before you can access those things. So they're putting wait times behind a paywall for the cloud gaming. Gosh, there's something else. Oh yes, so the other thing about rewards points. So before, you could actually earn enough rewards points to where you could pay for a month of Game Pass with rewards points. And I can't remember what the actual conversion rate was, but it was pretty reasonable. Like, I know one guy, one of the guys I interviewed for Dads and Gaming a while back, back in 2020 actually. He actually, I don't think he's paid for Game Pass at all in years. And right now he has it stacked to where he's got Game Pass up through 2028 just for Microsoft rewards points. Now they've made it so you cannot redeem points for Game Pass. You can redeem points for credit on the store, but it's increased by a dramatic amount, the amount of points you have to have. And basically all it is that you can use the points to get gift cards. And I think it's something insane, like you have to get 100,000 points or something in order to be able to get $100. And then you can use that to redeem towards, and you can use that money that you get to purchase Game Pass. I'd have to look at the specific details, but the point is that either way, it's like the conversion rate is dramatically higher, and it's to the point where this guy who, like I said, he's had Game Pass essentially free, just earning through rewards points using Bing and playing games on Xbox and so on and so forth for years. And he said that after his 2028, and when he gets to 2028, we'll see where things are, whether or not he's going to continue to subscribe. Because it basically made it so that he could play games for free. He didn't have to pay for any games on Xbox. And as much as I've heard, especially PlayStation fanboys say, oh, people play on Game Pass because it's free. Well, it's like, for most people, it's not. Most people are not doing that amount of work to get it free. Most people were spending the money. But if you knew what you were doing, you absolutely could get it for free. But not anymore. So, I mean, Microsoft obviously was making money, with people using the search engine, which made it so that people could, so that they could gain that data for selling and for, selling ads and so on and so forth. It was also a way that they could use that usage data to improve their algorithms and so on and so forth. There's lots of ways that they earned money through that. Oh yeah, and also just getting people to use Bing, which nobody wants to use otherwise, because I don't know if you ever watched the show Hawaii Five-0 when it was on ABC. But like the first episode, they were very clearly heavily sponsored by Microsoft, and one of the characters says Bing it instead of Google it. And they're using like Microsoft Surface tablets and everything, and it's like very clearly sponsored by Microsoft, but obviously that never caught on, the Bing it and all of that. The show was pretty good though, at least the few seasons I watched. But anyway, yeah, it was just so going back to this Game Pass thing. It's a 50% increase in price across the board. The additional things that they add for the ultimate tier, which by the way, that's the only one now where you can actually get day one of the first party games. I think that's probably day one of any new games is only in the ultimate tier now. They're also adding in Ubisoft Classics, which is just like basically old Assassin's Creed games and various things like that. And then you get V-Bucks for Fortnite are the additional things that they added. So whether or not this is worth it to anybody, I think for the most part, it's not worth it to people. I know that if I was subscribed to Game Pass, I would not consider that to be worth it, especially because I own basically all of the Assassin's Creed games. And like, if I didn't want to subscribe to the Ubisoft service anyway, why would I want this added in? Microsoft is basically saying, let's just throw all this crap in here so we can justify giving you a higher price. And this isn't stuff that people wanted. Now, it'd be one thing if they made it optional, if they just said, you can pay an extra $10, you can get these additional services if you want to, but you still get all the normal benefits that you always have had. But instead, they're basically saying, you're going to pay more, you're going to get these services that you'll probably never use, and you're just going to like it. You're just going to deal with it. You're going to either pay it or you don't get the day one games anymore. And I mean, there's so much to this. I mean, what is it they're doing? I don't know. The one thing that I thought was interesting, a theory that was put out there by Oh No, It's Alex, and I think that this actually makes a lot of sense, especially based on some stuff that Microsoft has said previously about wanting to make Windows the main place to play or whatever, is that Microsoft is essentially, even though they're going to continue to make hardware, they're no longer focused on the console war. They're focused on platform wars. They're focused on basically going against Steam is really what they're trying to do, because the PC market is significantly larger than the console market. I mean, console market, it basically caps out about 150 million people. The PC market is significantly larger. I mean, it's like 10 times that, at least. And going after, I mean, Steam, especially with Steam OS, with Proton, even just the use of Linux in general, it's definitely eating into Microsoft's market share. Now, it's obviously Windows is still just about a monopoly across the board. And even I, like, as much as I've thought about switching over to Linux, especially with the fact that I'm going to be forced to upgrade to Windows 11 pretty soon here, there's just, it's going to be too much effort to get everything, years worth of information and everything transferred over to switch over to Linux. And there's still just enough games with like anti-cheat built in to where, they don't run on Linux. And that's the only real reason I'm going to stick with it. Plus, I mean, I've been using Windows 11 on my work computer for a while. My laptop that I'm using right now was Windows 11. I mean, yeah, I would love to be able to make a switch over to Linux, but it's not simple enough. And when I say it's not simple, I just mean in terms of the amount of work that would be involved to make that big of a change. And I just don't feel like I have the time to put into all of that. And if they're not going to charge me to upgrade to Windows 11, even though obviously they're collecting my data and so on and so forth, though I'm certainly going to look into ways to de-bloat Windows 11 and try to give them as little data as possible. I'll probably be sticking with it. But getting back on topic, I really think that it would make a lot of sense that essentially Microsoft is wanting to focus more on the Windows side of things, and that Xbox is going to probably still be a part of that. And obviously they've confirmed they're still making hardware, despite the rumors that they were getting out of the hardware side of things. They're still going to make hardware. It's just that now essentially they're making an unlocked Xbox. They're making an Xbox that's, so Xbox as a pure lockdown console box is not going to be a thing anymore going forward. Instead, it's going to be a simplified PC that still runs on Windows, as Xbox always has, and is basically trying to get that market share, because right now Steam obviously dominates the PC gaming side of things. And even though Windows, of course, is the main operating system that most people use, Microsoft wants to crush Valve and do whatever they can to make that happen. And obviously, they're playing nice from the standpoint that they make their games available through Steam. But I mean, they're doing everything they can to try and make things work better, and make the money selling off user data and everything else. And all that being said, these Game Pass price hikes are crazy, and regardless of what their motivation is, I mean, I think that the idea of them focusing on Windows and just making Xbox essentially a Xbox PC going forward makes the most sense, and it's the only thing that I think logically would explain why they're doing what they're doing, because otherwise they're literally just shooting themselves in the foot. Or, well, not literally, I guess figuratively they're shooting themselves in the foot, and they're making things very difficult for themselves. But if they're not wanting to focus on the console side and they want to focus on PC and make that where they really get all their money, then congratulations, PlayStation and Nintendo, you won. And now people who want to continue to play on PlayStation and Nintendo are going to suffer, because they're going to see prices continue to increase. And I'm sure that Lena Khan will still blame the ABK deal for PlayStation and Nintendo making those increases. Or she'll just ignore those, that they make those increases, and continue to say it's all Microsoft's fault, because I warned you about this ABK deal, what was going to happen, and never mind, that was 2 years ago, and it's not even connected at all. Never mind the fact that they spent $80 billion on AI initiatives. And anyway, that's all I have to say.
Yeah, it's definitely ridiculous with this. And I mean, this unfortunately, while I guess we kind of fooled ourselves into thinking this is, all it's always gonna be this way. If you look at the past of every digital uh, entertainment as a service thing, the price has always gone up
Yep.
dramatically. I mean, look at Netflix. It originally was like what, $7 or something like
Seven
that. Now
dollars a
it's
month.
$20 a month. And
Yeah.
I think that's just for the most
Oh
basic
yeah, yeah.
tier.
The top. It's like I think it's 18 for the middle tier, but if you want high resolution streaming, it's $25 a month.
Yeah, that's like nearly a 4 times increase over
Yeah.
what it originally was. So this this was inevitable. Whether you want to blame it on the ABK deal or not, this was going to happen at some point sooner or later. That's just unfortunately a sad thing with these things. They rope you in by saying, "Hey, we've got a cheap service that gives you some stuff here." And then as they bring more people in, then they're like, "All right, now we need to like slowly start ramping up those prices here." But apart from that, I think it's just really interesting how Microsoft has essentially raised every single thing in terms of their games.
Yeah.
They've increased the price of their games. They've increased the price of the consoles twice in the same year. Now they've increased the price of the service that they provide as well, which is just
Yeah, and this is the second time in like probably about a year's time. I can't remember the
uh,
last time they upgraded because before I think it was I want to say it was $18 a month for Game Pass, and then it went up to 20. I mean, it wasn't that big of an increase last time, but it was still an increase.
yeah, it was still an increase. Definitely not as big as 50% as this time, but it's just insane how much of their stuff they've increased within this year. And you can't, again, we've mentioned this before, but I think that this is probably the most egregious thing because you can't say this due to market conditions. This is a digital product. There is no physical manufacturing that's involved in any of this. This is all digital. So how can you say market conditions are the reason why you have to raise the price of Game Pass? There's no excuse. And also, what's let me get the exact number here because I want to make sure I don't misrepresent what Microsoft has done here. It is okay. So I am not seeing this here. Oh yeah, here we go. They reached a new annual record this year of nearly $5 billion. Okay, and despite all that, despite the fact that they made so much money, apparently that wasn't enough. So they had to go and raise the price again, which what why it only just says it's corporate greed. Because if you can't, if they're gonna say, oh, we're struggling, we're just just a poor small multi-billion dollar, actually no, I think they're $1 trillion now, a poor $1 trillion company, we don't, we're just trying to survive. We're trying to just tread water and stuff. Well, sure, we only made $5 billion, but we really need this. So if you could spare some change, help a poor company out. Yeah, and that's why they have to raise the prices. No, I'm not buying that at all. This is ridiculous. There's no reason why you should be raising the price like this. It's ridiculous. Like you said before, if they had either given something of actual value, because like you said, it's not like you're actually getting Ubisoft Plus where you actually get current titles.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting Ubisoft Classic, so you're getting their older stuff and
Yeah.
not getting really anything more modern or new. And you're getting V-Bucks for Fortnite. Enough said there. So I do not think that justifies a $10 increase. And like you said, if they had that be an optional thing, sure, that's fine. You can fleece someone else, but no, there's no reason why it should have been like this. And I will also mention that just to sort of add to the point we're mentioning about their strategy, uh Xbox is now I'm sorry, PC is now included within all tiers of Game Pass now. So
Hmm.
it's not like before where you need to have a specific tier to actually have Game Pass on PC. Now it's all encompassing. So now every tier of Xbox Game Pass has it includes PC into it. So it's not
I'm not.
just the console as
Are
well.
you sure about that? Because that wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. Since PC only has one tier.
I don't know. Like I feel like I thought in the video
I mean,
it
I
she
didn't
said
watch
something
the
like
video,
now
so
every tier.
maybe you're right.
Yeah, like that's the weird thing. I mean, I don't know if it's just the fact that because of the different tiers, because games are limited, so it's like you have PC on Game Pass, but you're only limited to like this many games. I can't
Oh,
remember what
okay.
the number was, but I think it's like sort of like how it's working. Whereas like the cheapest version, you only have a certain number of games you can play, and then I think like the next year you have more games you can play, and then Ultimate you have like all the games available essentially.
Okay.
Or at least that's what it sounded like in the video that when I watched it. But I definitely agree that Microsoft is changing up their strategy with how they're focusing on what they want to do, as far as sort of thinking in a long run. Just because with exclusivity sort of dying off, and the walls that we had before, crumbling around us, it's hard to see, well, what's really the difference between this console and that console. They're thinking, okay, if consoles are essentially going to be the same more or less, we need to have a long-term plan. Sony doesn't have any type of ability to reach outside apart from putting their games on different storefronts. They don't have the ability to say, hey, we're gonna have our own sort of storefront on this platform. We're gonna have our own type of service on that platform. I'm sure they've got PS Plus where you can play on like streaming and stuff like that, but they don't have their own dedicated like operating system or anything like that. So because of that, Microsoft wants to think in a long-term, long-run scenario. So it does make sense that they would, like you said, branch more so into PC in that aspect, which is why they're also, I guess, just slapping the brand name on everything, and even things that aren't Xboxes and calling them Xboxes, like the
Yeah.
Ally X, which is really just a handheld PC. But yeah, they are definitely trying to get into that marketplace. Now, I still, even though there have been there's been progress. I still don't think that Microsoft at all is trying to directly compete with Valve. Well, maybe not Valve per se, but maybe just Linux in general. Like I don't think that Microsoft, even at this point, considers Linux even a molecule of a threat, just because of the market share. Is just like you said, Microsoft has a monopoly, and even with people either sticking on Windows 10, or what few there are jumping over to Linux, like at best, and I'm being very extremely generous here. I would say that at most Linux jumps up to 9% market share, and I'm being
Right.
extremely generous right now with that. Um, but I do think that they do want to capture as many different targets as they can, which is why they want to push that service. And it's like, hey, you can play your games here, there, and there. Which, on the one hand, it's sort of great if you're trying to have a type of what's what I'm looking for? Have a platform that is all encompassing, so that way, hey, I want to play my games here, I can do that. If I want to play my games on here, I can do that. My games will transfer over. So I think that's great. it on that in that perspective, but at the same time, I do feel like this is almost in a sense almost kind of not exactly the same way, because I think it's worse because it's a very closed down and locked ecosystem,
Mm-hmm.
but it's kind of like Apple with their iOS, where like you have your thing, it transfers to this hardware, and you can do this on there, and it all works together. But like I said, the only difference is that Apple is extremely locked down, and you have to only use their hardware, whereas Microsoft is allowing you to have your games on an actual Xbox console or have your games on PC as well. So I can acknowledge that. One thing that I can't remember what the exact details were. I think this had to do with Microsoft, which could really open up the doors. I think it's how Microsoft is handling something is going to not essentially anti-cheat software will not require kernel access. It's like something that Microsoft is doing. So if that goes through, I think it's in the process of going through. So it might be a matter of when it goes through. That should have a trickle effect to Linux, where games that couldn't run on Linux because of the anti-cheat won't have that issue, because kernel access will not be required, or it I think essentially might be banned in a sense. So that's something that I'll check back on in the future when I hear more stuff. But yeah, I think just as far as the Game Pass situation goes, this is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
No reason why it should be this expensive. I'm hoping that the people who are canceling their subscriptions do not backpedal and resubscribe later on. Because if you want to actually make Microsoft change their mind, just stick with it. Just have enough push, and they will bend. You can definitely bully these companies and say, hey, we are not going to take these practices you're trying to force upon us. We are going to speak with our money and not give you that money.
Yeah.
And then, they'll eventually say, oh, hey, we're listening to your feedback now. We're not getting the revenue we were getting before. Our investors aren't really happy about this, so we're going to lower the prices and set things back to the way they were before. No hard feelings. So I'm hoping that enough people just decide to cancel their subscriptions, and that way Microsoft will be forced to listen and retract everything they've done.
Yeah, I mean, I have a feeling that with as far as they've gone with this already, I don't think they're going to retract. Even, I mean, theoretically, or even if they did, it would only be temporary. I mean, yeah, it would be, the ideal would be that they retract on the price increase, and that they, um, if they want to have that like add an additional tier that adds those features, and say, hey, you can spend an extra $10 a month and you get these additional features, then sure, for people who want that. But when you're adding features that nobody asked for, and then making the lower tiers worse, I mean, that makes it harder, especially when it comes to like the day one games, because I mean, of course, originally you got it on all tiers. Then they made it so that only the premium and ultimate tiers got day one games, whereas core did not. And now they're making it so that only the ultimate tier gets day one games, and charges you extra for stuff you'd never asked for. So, but yeah, and I hope you're right about that thing with the anti-cheat, because if they could make that change, I would be willing to switch over to Linux. And it's just right now, like, it's that compatibility that's an issue for me. I need it to be able to run the stuff that I currently have, especially like right now I don't know for sure. I haven't looked into whether or not DaVinci Resolve Studio runs on Linux. If it does, that would definitely be helpful, because that's one of the major things I use. I mean, it's basically Steam and games associated with that, and then um, being able to play the games that have anti-cheat, which even though there's not a lot of them I play, I still don't want that restriction to be there, because if that restriction's there, then it's like, well, I can't play it on my desktop, and my desktop is my strongest hardware. That's where I really want to be able to play it. I mean, my laptop, yeah, that's Windows based, unless I change that to Linux, so that's going to be able to play those things. And I think you also said that Linux doesn't play nice with NVIDIA, or NVIDIA doesn't play nice with Linux.
It's the fact that Nvidia before has been really close sourced with their drivers. Now they've opened up, I think, within the past year, and they've had actual open source drivers,
Okay.
and they're working toward being more open source with Linux.
Okay.
I mean, starting I think around the RTX 3000 series, I think that's when the drivers were at least being decent enough,
Okay.
and they've worked more with it. So like I think if you have a card that is older than I think the GTX 10 series,
Mhm.
you should be fine in most case scenarios, especially now with the new drivers and stuff,
Mhm.
new support. It just previously Nvidia has been not too great
Mhm.
on that end. So, things should be improving with that. And I do believe that DaVinci Resolve does have a native
Okay.
Linux version
Okay.
from
That's
what
good.
I've heard, but I just need to confirm that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really just those main things though. It's being able to play.
Yeah,
It's just I want to be able to do everything that I need to be able to do, because I would rather be in Linux, just because then I don't have. I mean, it's open source, don't have to deal with all of the nonsense with Windows and stealing data and all that. But it's also a lot. It will be a lot of work, and so it has to be really worth it. I mean, it has to be completely compatible with everything, even if it requires a Proton layer. Like, I don't mind Proton. I have no problem with that. Obviously, it's worked great for Steam Deck, but it's just the thing is where Proton can't get past it, that's a problem for me. So,
yeah,
but yeah, either way, we'll see what happens with all of this. I'm uh I wouldn't say I'm necessarily optimistic on the Xbox side of things. Um and if they're indeed really moving this direction where they're basically going more or less all in on PC, just with Xbox hardware that is essentially Xbox and PC at the same time. Speaking of which, I do want to say one thing. Um, I had been largely in the same position as you, thinking that the Xbox Ally and Ally X were just handheld PCs, but I've come to realize after listening to the stuff that they've said about these things that essentially they are both PCs and Xboxes, because I think that's just the direction Microsoft is going in the future. Is they're doing both, and they put in the work to try and make the Xbox Ally and Ally X into Xboxes. Now, and then something else that was also pointed out, I can't remember if it was, oh no, it's Alex talking about it or someone else, but it was a good point that I thought was worth noting. We talked about previously how Microsoft was going to be focusing on backwards compatibility and trying to make things forwards compatible with future hardware. The idea that was brought up, which would be cool if they actually do it, and hopefully that's what they're planning, is to make it so that games from the Xbox, the 360 especially, would be playable on future Xboxes, including the PC Xboxes. Which would mean, theoretically, that 360 games, at least digital 360 games, would work on PC. And you'd be able to play. It would probably more or less be with the translation layer, but on like the Xbox Ally and Ally X, they would actually be able to play 360 and original Xbox digital games just using a translation layer. Because, I mean, when you think about it, those games are essentially Windows games. They're just a different version of Windows with Xbox. And if they did that, then that would, uh, I think that would move things forward because that's better than emulation. I mean, as
Yeah.
we've seen with Proton, Proton is huge and it's been immensely helpful being able to play. I mean, changing from being forced to only be able to play native Linux versions of games to actually be able to play Windows versions of games with a translation layer. It's been huge, and it's made that's why we can play the majority of our games on Steam Deck. Some run better than others, obviously, because of the limits of the hardware, but the fact that they can even run on Linux when they are native Windows versions is fantastic. And if they did something like that on the Xbox side for being able to play the previous gen games with going into the essentially an Xbox PC going forward, which is really what it seems like they're doing, that could be really good. I still think the price increases are ridiculous, and I don't think anybody should pay that. I think, like you said, people need to vote with their wallets. They need to say, we're not going to pay this. We're going to cancel our subscription until you fix this and do something different. Or at the very least, give more value for the money. But I think realistically, what they need to do is they need to just create a new tier. Say, this is the more expensive tier. You can get more out of it if you want it. But everybody else, will honor the previous prices and will not take away your ability to do Microsoft rewards points in order to pay for it, even if they say that, you have to do more rewards points. But anyway.
One quick question I just thought about, especially considering the trajectory that Xbox is on, what do you think will be the future of Xbox Live if, considering the fact that they're transitioning away and Xbox Live has really just been a console thing?
Yeah. Well, they're still charging for it with Game
No,
Pass.
true.
So, I mean, yes, it's no longer called Xbox Live, but their internet, that you have to pay for a second time, is part of that service, and that's part of why they charge more. Which is funny because PC Game Pass, yes, we got the 50% increase as well, but it's still less. I mean, it's still just a little under half. I mean, a little over half of what it costs for Game Pass Ultimate. And you still get the majority of the benefits. You basically just don't have to pay for online. And I don't think you get the Ubisoft stuff or the V-Bucks. But yeah, because as far as I know, there's basically no change to the PC Game Pass except the price going up by 50%. So, yeah. Anyway. All right. Any more thoughts on that before we go to the last topic?
No, sir.
All right. So this last topic is one that's kind of more facepalm sort of thing. And that is that apparently, according to Elon Musk, by the end of next year, by the end of 2026, Grok, the AI that is specific to X/Twitter, will make it possible for them to create a full-fledged AAA game. And that it's going to be completely AI generated. So, I definitely have some thoughts here, but I want to hear what you have to say.
This is yeah, I don't why okay, first off, why would you want to make a completely AI generated game which has no human inspiration put into it, that is completely devoid of all creativity whatsoever, and just leave it to a soulless AI is beyond me. But the fact that you would go and call it or at least the video end result product of the game great also baffles me, because I do not think that it'll be that great, frankly speaking. And sure, there's been a lot of shovelware, and there in recent months have been a lot of games with AI generated textures and features and models and stuff like that. But even still, I think that would also show how I think you're really just trying to scrape the bottom of the barrel as far as AI generated games here. And sure, looking at the video of the clip and whatnot, it's a thing, but this isn't actually a game here. This is a vehicle. How do we know this isn't just some sort of video that is being rendered? And I mean, also the frame rate that I've seen, I'm not entirely certain what that frame rate is. Here and there, it looks a little stuttery, which I'm just like, it's gonna be great. You say, I'm gonna have to press X to down on that one, Chief. Um, and while I despise the use, it's one thing to say, and there have definitely been quite a few companies who say, yeah, we're looking to use AI to help us with video games, and that's one thing because there's still a human at the other end working on those games. When you
Yeah.
say we're gonna have an AI make a whole game from start to finish, it's just why? Why? I mean, if you, the closest thing to some type of AI you could argue type of thing would be procedural generation. But even then, there
Right.
is still some type of human thought behind it.
Hmm.
Because I was actually watching a video. It wasn't about AI or procedural generation, but just the fact of just analyzing why like this one game failed in what it was doing. But the fact that with procedural generation, while some stuff is assorted in its random per se, there are some rules that are set by the developer so that way you don't have like things stacking over on top of other objects, or
Hmm.
the layout is built where things work and are consistent and they make sense and are logical. um so even though things are assorted randomly, there's still human thought behind that. With AI, there's no human thought whatsoever. So, you know, there's stuff that could be random, it could be weird. There's stuff that, a human would say, just looking at this through the gameplay, would say, huh, something's not right here. Like, the collision's not right. Things are, uh, you know, objects are moving through each other when they should be stopping. This doesn't make sense. This doesn't work at all. And meanwhile, AI is just like, beep bop boop, here we
Yeah.
go, beep bop boop, there we go. And I don't know what Musk is thinking here. It's weird. And I it's just a lot of this stuff again, and we've mentioned this quite a few times, just like people are just overly reliant on AI, and it's just so sad the fact that it's like, why would you want something that has no inspiration behind it to do something where someone who has creativity could go and do something that is a billion times better and has actual thought behind it, and people are actually working and getting paid because they have a job. I it's just insane. And I mean, this is not the same thing, but I believe I saw this uh like at work a week or so ago. I think someone shared this, is the fact that there has been, I can't remember who did this, but it's like some person of, I think, European, made an AI actress, like, and then like to say, hey, you can have this AI actress be in your Hollywood films. And obviously a lot of Hollywood actors weren't exactly thrilled about that, and they were you know expressing their disdain for this. And so I think it's a similar thing where, why are you, there are people who are talented out there who can do this thing, but you just want to replace their job with an AI, which is just ridiculous. So I do not have a lot of confidence in the end result of this supposedly great game. But we'll see what the train wreck looks like next year, I guess, unless it gets delayed to 2028 or something like that, or 2027 or something like that. But we'll see. But I'm not optimistic on that end.
Yeah, there's some people have pointed out that there have been a lot of times in the past where Elon Musk has said something was going to happen soon, and like stuff that was supposed to have happened back in 2020 that hasn't happened yet. I mean, granted, at that point, that was certainly delayed by a pandemic and everything like that, but still, there's not much reason to have faith in the timeline that he is saying. Furthermore, in terms of the actual like the little demo that they did, I mean, there's some stuff about it visually that like, yeah, it's visually impressive, but the problem is that it still feels off. And it's obviously because there's no human behind it. You know, there's no soul behind it. Even the most soulless basic bro shooter that, you know, feels relatively generic still feels like people actually made it. And that didn't feel real at all. Like you looked at it and it's like there's something just not quite right about it. And it's hard to put your finger on it, but yeah, then of course there's, you know, the frame rate issue like you pointed out. That's definitely not 60 frames per second. Watching that clip over and over, there's no way that was 60. I mean, that was probably 30 or lower. And granted, that may or may not be just an issue of this is how, and this is just like an initial teaser of what's technically potentially possible, and it could get that it should get better over time. And yes, I'm sure there will be a time in the future that you'll have a genuinely reasonably well crafted AI generated game, but it's not going to be, it's still not going to feel the same as something that's actually made by actual people. Even the worst, most garbage games that are made by actual people, they still feel like they're actually made by people instead of, you know, being made by a machine. And I mean, some of the stuff that I've seen with AI has been impressive, but it still always feels off. Like there's some various like comedy skits that they've done with entirely AI generated stuff. And it's like, yeah, that's actually pretty funny. Um, but it's still just like, I mean, of course you can tell it's made by AI. It's not as bad as AI used to be. I mean, it's improved dramatically, but it still just feels off. And I mean, granted, sometimes I wouldn't mind if like real life actors got replaced by AI because of the fact that some of these actors are just like kind of people I don't want to hear what they have to say, or, you know, that they're just extremely pretentious and they think way too highly of themselves. But at the same time, you know, I still would ultimately rather have a human person behind something instead of something that's just made by a computer, because it's just not right. But yeah, this it looked terrible. I mean, I think it's an improvement over like what we looked at from Microsoft a while back with that weird Splatoon like game or whatever it was. It was just bizarre. But it's still just, it just felt off. I'm almost curious about whether or not that person thing actually had like more than 5 fingers on a hand. Wouldn't surprise me at all. But of course, you couldn't fully see the hand. You could only see just like the thumb and a couple other things. But yeah, it's just weird stuff. And definitely the optimism there of actually making a fully generated game that soon, let alone it being a great game. I don't buy it. But yeah, that's all I got.
Same here.
All right. Well, that's all the stories we had for tonight. So let's get into our recommendations and dissuasions. Go ahead and start us off.
All right, so a couple recommendations for me. First one is going to be if you are playing Power World and you're using the Steam controller, increase the sensitivity for the camera and for the aiming as well, because the defaults that you have set for just this regular controller is just way too low. That it's abysmal to use. So I raised up to, I think, 4.5, and it was pretty comfortable. I originally bumped up to 5.5, but that was just way too sensitive, so I had to turn it back down some. I might mess around with it a little bit more, but I think that 4.5 is a decent starting point to use. You can adjust it to your preference from there, but I think definitely raising it helps a whole lot, because otherwise you're just going to be like constantly rubbing your thumb against the pad just to get to move at a decent pace, and if you're in combat, you will get hit a lot while you try to move the camera around. Additionally, I would also, it's separate, but my other recommendation is possibly check out GOG for some games. They've put some new games. I mean, not necessarily new games, but they have, relative to the storefront, new releases. One of them being Clear Obscure Expedition 33, also known as Game of the Year 2025. But also, surprisingly, Silent Hill F was released on there, I think, the other day, which surprised me. But Konami seems to be doing a lot more with that storefront, which surprised me, because I know they put the Metal Gear Solid 1 collection on there roughly around the same time as they did on Steam. They put the Castlevania collection on there. They put, I mean, this is late, but they put Metal Gear Revengeance on there. So, and also they put on Silent Hills 2 Remake, which I was very surprised about when they did that. So Konami's been giving some support there. I know just the other day the Crisis Trilogy, Remaster Trilogy was brought over there. So there's some stuff going on with GOG. So, you know, if you want to get some games and also have them completely DRM free, check it out. It might be something there worth getting. But yeah, those are my recommendations.
Always good. Yep, GOG for sure. All right, so I have a couple recommendations. First of all, I should have recommended this last week, but I forgot to write it down. Mission Impossible Final Reckoning, the last one that came out. It's available at least to rent right now. The physical version doesn't come out till next week, and unfortunately they don't have just like a standard Blu-ray, at least not on Amazon, which is dumb. You have to either buy a 4K Blu-ray that also includes a regular Blu-ray, or you can buy the DVD. We ended up just going for digital this time because it's just too expensive for the 4K Blu-ray. It's like $35. I'm not spending that much on a disc. It's not worth it to me. I'll just wait for a discount. But we bought it digitally because it was like, I think it was $8 to $10 for the digital version, and it was $6 to rent it. It's like, might as well just buy it. Especially because we have all the other Mission Impossible movies. And yeah, it was great. It was fantastic. Had plenty of references to the previous movies, even brought up explained what a certain MacGuffin was from a previous movie that never got explained in that movie, and tied it into the current story very heavily. So yeah, it was great. I really enjoyed it. Something else that's a random recommendation, because I only learned about it this past week. Yeah, Asian pears. I don't know if you've ever had an Asian pear, but they're different than regular pears, because regular pears, they're more like soft and that sort of thing when they're ripe. Asian pears are round like apples, and they're a little more crispy on the outside, but then they're still fairly soft on the inside. Not quite as soft as the other pears, but they're much more apple-like in texture, and they kind of have more of a nutty flavor to them. They're really good, though. I'd never heard of them before, but my wife and the kids and my wife's parents went to a orchard pretty close by, and they got some fruit and some pecans and the Asian pears were one of the things they got, and it's my first time ever trying them. I mean, I'd seen them before, I've just never had one, and yeah, they're really good. So that's my other recommendation.
Interesting. I'll definitely have to check that out because I've never heard of those before. So,
Yeah.
so I'll definitely look into that.
All right, dissuasions.
My dissuasion is going to be: do not think that what has happened with Game Pass is going to stop here. If you think that, okay, this is going to be it, Microsoft is just going to raise it this one last time here and that'll be it, you're wrong. They're going to raise it again, and even if you think that $30 is, pretty much going to be a soft cap as far as how high they can raise it, don't be surprised if you see $40 Game Pass, which is insane to think about.
Yeah.
It's definitely possible. It might take a while, but they're gonna get to that point eventually. So if you really enjoy Game Pass and you would like it to be a more affordable service or something that is reasonable, then don't support it right now. Wait until, and if enough people, join together and say they're not going to buy it, then Microsoft will be forced to backpedal for now, at least, as you said before. But you will slow down that progress to $40 Game Pass. So don't buy it now, and stick with it too. Don't jump back in a month or two from now just to say, well, I want to get this game and I want to have to pay for it, so I'll just use Game Pass. I mean, think about this point. You're getting to the point where if you buy Game Pass and you spend $30, that's already half of the price of one full game. So essentially, you're going to be saying, I'm going to just play one game, but the price of Game Pass is going to slowly creep up to the price of a full-fledged game. So if you want to stop that from happening, just stop supporting it. Simple as that. Or even better, wait until the game's on discount. That's another thing. A lot of good games out there, I should say. So you can have something to keep you occupied until that game drops and you can get it for half the price, if not more so, than it's currently being sold for.
Yep.
That's my dissuasion.
Agreed. All right, my dissuasion. So let me give a little bit of background information. So with doing stuff for my church, with playing, doing music on Sundays, we can get the majority of our music through CCLI, but occasionally there's a song that's just not available there at all. There was one song I needed that was not available there. And so I looked online for chords, and I ended up on ultimateguitar.com, which used to be free back when it was, back in the early 2000s and all that. I don't know when they went to a paid subscription model or whatever, but it's a paid subscription model now. You can do a 7-day free trial, but the thing is that if you don't, if you cancel it, well, let me back up. They have, if you subscribe, it's multiple different subscriptions all at once. You can't just be like, I just want to subscribe to this one part. There's like the subscription for getting music, for getting chords and tabs and that sort of thing. And then a secondary subscription that's part of it, that's a secondary cost, where it's like you can get lessons and other stuff. I don't remember what the actual cost is for the main subscription, but the cost for the secondary thing is $100 a year. And so I had gone on just to get chords for one song. Immediately after I got those chords, I canceled my subscription. Or so I thought. Because apparently there was that second part to the subscription that I had to cancel separately, but I didn't realize that because they don't make it clear, they don't make it obvious. And so a week after I had subscribed and unsubscribed, they charged me $100. Of course, I contacted them first. I showed them a screenshot. Hey, this email shows that I canceled my subscription, and said, "Oh, well, there was a second subscription that you subscribed to, and because you didn't cancel in this time, we can't give you a refund for it." And they tried to like find ways to get me to, like, they would, okay, well, we'll refund 25%, and you will have, you can have access to this for an extra year for that price that you've already paid. And they're giving me different options. It's like, no, I don't want any of these options. I never wanted all of the lessons and all this other garbage that I never asked for in the first place. I literally just wanted the music for one song. And especially because, I mean, I've been playing guitar for 22 years. I don't need lessons. Yes, I'm not a professional. I'm sure that I could learn things from other people, but if I really want to learn things from other people, YouTube exists. There are plenty of other services I could try out that could give me lessons that I need. Or I could just, talk to real people I know that are better musicians than me. But anyway, all that being said, I had to bring out my inner Karen in order to get my money back. But I basically just said, you cancel the subscription, you refund me fully, or I will not only challenge this with my bank, I will dispute the charge with my bank and get the refund that way, but on top of that, I'm also going to make sure to let everybody know, every musician that I know, do not ever subscribe through them, because this is a scam. I mean, it's like, I don't care if the terms of service say that you can't subscribe. Nobody reads the terms of service. And so, you're trying to do this. I'm not going to let you get away with this. So I brought out my inner Karen on that, and they refunded me in full. So all that being said, my dissuasion is, do not subscribe to Ultimate Guitar. Period. Find the chords some other way. If you have to, you can view it before you print or make it a PDF or whatever. You can view it, transpose it out yourself. Do that instead. Copy and paste whatever it is you need to do, and it's way better than spending $100+ for a year subscription. And they're just really sneaky in how they do it. It's just incredibly scummy, and I never said that I wouldn't tell people not to buy it if they refunded me, but I said that I definitely would if they didn't refund me. And this way, it works out both ways, and I don't have to go through my bank to get a refund on that. But it's like, I didn't want that subscription in the first place. I wanted one song. That's all I needed. And I decided to, give you the benefit of the doubt and save myself a little bit of time by printing it off rather than having to copy and paste and then move the chords around manually in order to be able to figure out the exact placement, or get the placement right, because it's just a pain to do on on Word and everything, because you have to hit spacebar to get it in just the right spot, and just a pain in the butt. So anyway, yes, don't ever subscribe to ultimateguitar.com, even if you want to learn how to play guitar. Don't use that. Do something else. Do YouTube. Whatever it is you have to do, do not subscribe through them, because it is scummy what they do. So, I'm done. All right. Where can people find you?
They can find me on my channel. I am Zeracon. That's IAMXCRACON. So youtube.com/@IamZeracon. The Clear Obscure review is still in progress. I'm going to try to have that ready by next week. Still in progress for that, so that'll be the next video. And then I'll try to get back on track to the Spider-Man one. Unfortunately, it seems like the episodes that I have that were saved on my hard drive, I don't know if this is just a problem with my laptop or if it's the files have been corrupted, but there have been some weird lines in them that weren't there before, and the colors completely messed up, even though they were fine before. So I have to go back and see what the issue is with that, because that'll impact about when I can actually have the video ready, with editing and stuff. So I have that. I also have my other channel, Justin's Bible Blog. That's at Justin's Bible Blog. No content yet. I do have something that I hope to have ready this weekend. If latest, maybe Monday. Just something that that I heard at the funeral that the pastor was saying in the eulogy that I think was very encouraging for believers, in our walks. So I think that was just something I also wanted to share, um, share on that end. But yeah, that's everything that I have.
All right, good stuff. Well, you can find me on my YouTube gaming channel at the Frozen Gamer 87. Haven't put out anything new in a little bit since I did the Why I Love PC Gaming video. I'm hoping this weekend I'll have time to at least get that controller review done. I theoretically should, because I'm not doing music this week, and I don't think I have anything scheduled for Saturday. Plus, I believe there might be something that my wife... Oh, wait, that's right. She has something going on in the evening, so I may get it recorded in the evening. I haven't really figured it out exactly yet. But I'm hoping to at least get something recorded this weekend, whether it's that or finally getting around to recording the video for the downsides of PC gaming, because that's been long on the back burner, and I basically have my points written out, and I just need to record stuff. And that one I think won't be quite as won't require near as much work as the previous one did, because I'm not going to be including a bunch of game clips and that sort of thing. But it's still just, it needs to get done. So we'll see how soon that gets done. Either way, I will obviously update whenever that's done. Something I do want to note, I'll post up more information about it, and I'll probably at least post the link to the donation page. But on Friday, October 24th, starting at 9 a.m. Central Time, I will be doing my 24-hour stream for the 4th year for Stack Up Charity. It's either the 4th or 5th. I can't remember which one it is. I think this year is Stack Up 12, maybe? Let's see here. I did 7 was my first one, so it's either 11 or 12 this year. I can't remember which it is, but so this is either my 4th or 5th year in a row. But I'm going to be raising money for the Stack Up Charity, which is a charity that provides services to veterans who are struggling with PTSD, and basically it gives video games and has a lot of different services to help veterans in dealing with the struggles that come with returning to civilian life after going through war times and everything else. Help them connect with people and just find ways to productively utilize their time and that sort of thing. But anyway, great charity. I'm glad to be streaming and raising money for it again this year. And I'll make sure to get the link posted, hopefully, probably in the description of both the video and audio versions of the podcast this week, and then go from there. Also, there is the YouTube channel and Rumble channel for this podcast. On YouTube, it's at the Orange Box Podcast. On Rumble, it's not a custom URL, but you can also find the episodes there. Episode goes live every Friday, 7 a.m. Central Time, barring any technical issues. And then there's the audio-only version, which goes live at 12 a.m. Central Time every Friday, barring any technical issues. And that is on all major audio podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, Deezer, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and others that I'm probably forgetting to mention. But point is it's just about everywhere. So you can check out those. I do have a YouTube cooking channel, Not Authentic But Delicious. That's YouTube at NABD Cooking. That one hasn't had anything new in quite a while. I don't know when I'm going to get anything else up there, but there's somewhere between 30 and 40 recipes on the channel that you can check out. Lots of really good stuff. So that is all of that. And I think that's everything. I guess the last thing is if you want to reach out to us, whether you have comments or questions that you want us to read on the podcast, or just have things you want to ask us in general, you can send us an email to the orangeboxpodcast@gmail.com, or you can also write us, comment on our videos, and any of those things would work just fine. You can write us on X/Twitter at the orangeboxpod, even though we are not active on there. So while I will probably see the message, we're, like I said, we're not active. So you can send us a message or tweet at us, and we'll go from there. But that should be everything. All right, last chance. Any final thoughts?
No, sir.
All right, well, I am the Frozen Gamer 87. That is I am Zeracon. We are the Orange Box Podcast, and until next time, beep bop borp. Orange Box Podcast out.